The 16 pans that we're gonna look at today have a burgundy base with a teal shift on top. So if you look at them directly from the top, you should not see gold, you should not see green. Some of these might have a little bit of gold inside of them, but the main prominent color should either be burgundy or teal. Let's get started. I'm gonna try to do all of these on one hand so that you can see the comparisons. Our first color is Vegas Bis from Glam Shop, and this one I'm pretty familiar with. It's not super opaque and it's pretty crumbly, so we have to be careful. I can guarantee you that by the end of this video, this table is gonna be covered. So I think the camera is capturing the prominent burgundy base, and you should be able to see that it's kind of translucent. And although the shift on top is very obviously tealy in the pan, on my hand you might not be able to see the teal very well, but it's there. Our next shade is from Burgundy. This is 165, and I consider this a pretty reasonable dupe of Vegas Bis. So let's try. It definitely has a more creamy texture. It's not as flaky, but it is flaky nonetheless. And as you can see, I think the two colors are pretty close. If you have one, I would not say that you need the other one. Our next shade is Terra Borealis from Terra Moons. Let's make sure I use a finger I haven't used. I tried to arrange these with the most similar colors next to each other, just visually similar. So let's see. I can get into the details and tell you what I see, but they are pretty similar. Let's be honest, if somebody's looking at your eyes from a hand's length, they're not going to be able to see the difference here. Particularly Vegas Bis and Terra Borealis, these two are super similar. Now, Terra Borealis does have a green shift. I'm going to move it around to see if you can catch that green. It's not super green, but it's not super teal, which I don't think Vegas Bis has, but you probably don't need both of these singles. Now that we've gone a little green, let's go a little more green. This one is Messier from Divina, and we can definitely see the prominent green. This is the greenest shade we're gonna have in this collection that I'm swatching today. This shade definitely goes super burgundy to super teal, so I had to include, and it has a beautiful shift that I kind of wanted to swatch today. Again, different, but not super different. The base is more or less the same color as the other ones. It's a little bit more green, the glaze over it, than all of these other ones. Definitely when I'm comparing it to Vegas Bis, our first color, it's much more green. It's also definitely more gold than these other ones. The other ones were mostly cool toned. And I'm gonna do a little bit of this for you to catch that gold. Hopefully the camera's capturing the gold. But other than that, you know, I think these colors can be reasonable dupes. Now that we went green, I'm gonna test this Cleona one. And beauties, in these videos, I might have a shade that might no longer be available, because the purpose of these videos is for you to be able to see the comparisons in case you have a shade, to not go buy something that looks very similar to it. And you know, some of these discontinued shades you might already own, so I think there is value in swatching those as well. This one is Azure Deep Iridescent Multichrome from Cleona, and this one does have a green shift, which is why I was like, okay, let's swatch this one next. But as we can see, it's pretty blue. And I also see a much more magenta purple in the base than I see burgundy, like these other colors. And now that we're there, let's do this one as well. This is 161 from Burnovich, and I think this might be a good one to swatch after Azure from Cleona, because at least visually they looked very similar, but now I see that it's not that similar. I mean, it probably looks more similar to these other ones because you can see the prominent base, and that glaze, the teal to blue glaze that you see on top here, is much more diffused when I swatch it. And these Burgundy colors, I would say, are more duochromes than multichromes, although in this one I definitely see a teal to blue glaze on top with the magenta-y base. But they seem much more duochrome to me than multichrome. In fact, I would say the first ones that I swatched were definitely more duochrome than multichrome. Beauties, at the end, I will show you these swatches from a different angle also, and you can see comparisons in the different lighting and different angle as well. Our next color is Pavonin, also from Divina. This one similarly, much more of a magenta base, and interestingly, I would say it's a pretty close dupe for 161 from Burgundy. I mean, it's a little bit more warm toned, the base, but other than that, the glaze is very similar. And in the pan, I definitely see some green, but I can't really see it in the swatch. I'm gonna tag my swatch playlists below because I've swatched all of these different bundles from Divina, Cleona, etc. And that might also help if you like swatch videos. Let's continue with Blossom from Copacetic. And this one definitely has a green shift in some angles. Yeah, I was not expecting it to have that much of a green shift, but it's actually beautiful. So the green looks like it's just glitters throughout, that peeks out in some angles. Can you see this? This reminds me a lot of a Terra Moons that I recently used in making a 6-pan custom-made palette for spring. In one of my videos, I will tag that video for you all. The name of that one was something winter. I can't remember the name of that color, but this shade totally reminds me of that. Okay, we have a lot more shades to go, and I don't know how I'm gonna fit all of them on this hand. But let's continue with this one from Shine by SD. This is Forever, and it's actually a holochrome, or looks like a holochrome to me. But hey, this one does also have a teal shift on top with a burgundy base, or sort of a burgundy-ish base. So I was like, we have to swatch. It is pretty close to the shade I swatched it next to. Definitely has a holochromatic effect in comparison. Also, it doesn't have a prominent base. It literally looks like it is going magenta to green compared to the other shade that I just swatched from Copacetic Blossom. But they're pretty close. Depending on how much of your eye look you're using these two colors on, you could just opt for one of them. Let's continue with some other shades that might also be more similar to these earlier ones. This one is, this might be Hybrid from Luxie. As you can see, it's completely disappeared. And I'm going to use this finger that I've not used before. And because I think it's probably more similar to these earlier ones, I'm just gonna swatch it there. And as you can see, still very similar to all of these, but the base has a shift of kind of pinky magenta that these other ones don't have. So in that sense, it's different, but regardless, for a $3 shade, I would say this is totally worth it because it's gorgeous. We didn't really want to go in the magenta realm, but now that we did, let's also do Grisaille from Cleona. Now I feel like this one is going to be much more magenta, yes. So I was not thinking this would fit into this group, but hey, we did it anyway. So the base is much more magenta, and the shift on top is more cool toned than all of these, pretty much everything. It's more bright than anything past this point anyway, but the texture is different because these ones look much more glittery, and Grisaille looks like very wet looking, which is a completely different effect. And it's much more cool toned than these. If I do this, maybe the camera's capturing it, I would say it's kind of similar, but if I do that, I see more or less pink magenta, which is a completely different color than everything else. Okay, continuing with Supersonic, also from Luxie. Now this one is kind of different. Definitely the same kind of effect, just different color range, much more cool toned, but definitely a burgundy base, but a cool toned burgundy, more like dark brown going into sort of a cool toned teal. And a beautiful shade, but not like anything else I swatched. And going in the same direction, we have another one, Misfit, also from Luxie. It's gonna be so hard to make sure you all can see everything. Yeah, so this one I would say is more of a duochrome with a sort of a dark burgundy base with a shift of green on top. I would not call this a multichrome. It's also not super bright and glittery and shifty like all of these other ones, but it's beautiful. Now that we did that, let's do Wormwood from Clionadh, which might be kind of similar. Kind of the same concept, but darker base and darker glaze. And the glaze is not as creamy, so I can't really see the transition from green to burgundy. I don't seem to have a lot of room, so thankfully we only have 2 more colors. And here I have Interstellar from Teramos. And this one I would say goes more with these colors because it's much more opaque than these earlier ones, and the base is also much darker toned than these earlier ones. But there is no exact dupe in anything I swatched. This one is kind of close, but Interstellar definitely has a much more prominent shift. Also, the glaze definitely goes blue to green or blue to tealy. And let me move this around to capture those changes in colors. Okay, for our last color, we have Abrasion from Glitter Multichromes of Clionadh. I think this one is going to be just too blue compared to everything else I have, but let's try it anyway. So the base is a lot more purple than anything else, and the glaze on top goes teal to blue. Let me move this so you can see those shifts. It doesn't look like any of the other colors that I've swatched. It's a lot more cool toned and it's blue. Although I did not look into the blues in my collection, I was expecting this to be much more teal, but I see the blue more prominently. I suppose the base is purple. It doesn't really have a burgundy base, which could be the reason why it doesn't really look like it belongs to this collection. But hey, we have it, so let's take a look. Okay, beauties, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Also, write to me in the comments below what you like about these kinds of videos so that I make sure I talk about those things or make more videos about them. I love you all. Have an amazing day, and until next time, bye.